Now, the reason why rent in places like Toronto and places like Vancouver are the most expensive rents in Canada is because when you think of Vancouver and Toronto, those are the places where most people live, and it's also the place where most immigrants are still moving to. Even now in 2023, most immigrants still decides to move to places like Toronto and Vancouver. At the end of the day, any college that you go to, you still get a degree at the end of the day, and your degree is still worth a degree no matter where you went. And yes, there may be employers who are like, we want to take persons from an amazing university or a university that is ranked number one, but that I haven't seen that as something that people in Canada consider at all. So if that is something you are thinking about, I've never heard of anyone who have been filtering persons based on where they went to school. So many times you guys have contacted me and asked me about what are the cheapest universities that are in Canada, or what are the cheapest colleges that are inside of Canada. So today I will be telling you about some of the cheapest universities and colleges in Canada so that you can pick, choose, and refuse. Now I will be providing approximately 10 different universities and colleges that are some of the most cheapest colleges that are in Canada. Now, one of the first things that you should note is that colleges are typically cheaper than universities. So that is the first thing that you should keep in mind. Now, if you're trying to decide whether you should go to a college or should you go to a university, it really depends on your current history. For example, if you have a diploma, then clearly if you already have a diploma, then it would make sense for you to get like a bachelor's degree. However, let's say you already have a bachelor's degree, then it would make sense that it is time to go and get something like a master's. So that is how you can gauge and decide whether you go to a college or a university. It really depends on where you are at in your education. Now, the first university that I can think of is the Memorial University of Newfoundland. Now, Newfoundland is a province that is inside of the Atlantic region, and if you're thinking about the Atlantic region consists of 4 provinces, and they are the smallest provinces in Canada. Now, these provinces tend to be cheaper in cost of living compared to places like Toronto or Ontario in general. Now, some of the most expensive places would be like Ontario and Vancouver. So if you're thinking about which university you should go to or which college you should go to, you can't only think about the university or the college that you're going to. You have to also think about other things, and other things include thinking about cost of living. That's the main thing. You also want to think about transportation. There was not a lot of buses that were running, and what I heard is that previously there was actually no bus that was running before, and over time, as more persons moved to PEI, that is when more buses begin to run. So what that means is that most people here only drives a car. So those are things that you have to consider when you're going to a province, is thinking about what are their transportation. Do they only have Uber? How much is the Uber? And that is why cost of living is one of the biggest ones. Now, the reason why rent in places like Toronto and places like Vancouver are the most expensive rents in Canada is because when you think of Vancouver and Toronto, those are the places where most people live, and it's also the place where most immigrants are still moving to. Even now in 2023, most immigrants still decides to move to places like Toronto and Vancouver. This is because these are the biggest areas and they have a wide variety of resources, a wide variety of offerings, a wide variety of everything. So because of that, many persons tend to move to places like Toronto and Vancouver. Now, this comes down to supply and demand. Now, because the supply of housing in places like Toronto, are just supply in general throughout Canada, like Canada is going through a housing crisis right now. If you should think about economy and think about supply and demand, what you realize is that the demand for housing has significantly increased because of the number of persons who have been moving to the provinces, and because of that, the supply has gone down. Now, because the supply is low and the demand is high, that is why houses are so expensive. So when you're thinking about a university, it is not only about the university, it is not only about the college, it is more so about the cost of living of the province that you're going to. It is also about what are your goals, what exactly do you want to achieve from your purpose, what exactly do you want to achieve when coming to Canada. Let's say you are coming to Canada and your purpose for coming to Canada is that you just want to have fun and you want to also get your degree while having fun. Now, if that is your goal, then maybe somewhere like the Atlantic region is not for you, because in the Atlantic region there isn't a lot of fun activities that are here. Therefore, it makes more sense that it would be better that you go to somewhere like Toronto that is very big and it has all these parties, nightlife, and things like that. That is not here in the Atlantic region. Therefore, if this is like one of your major goals, then maybe Toronto would be for you. Now, the only reason why places like Toronto and Vancouver are very difficult right now is because of the number of persons who are there. Based on the number of persons who are there, there isn't enough resources for the number of people who are there. Therefore, there is a housing crisis, and therefore everything is way more expensive in those provinces. So just keep that in mind. And in those, I'm going to say in those cities, but at the same time, the provinces kind of have a similar price range nevertheless. However, what you would realize is, let's say you decide to go to a city that is not as popular. For example, you go to Ontario, but you go to a city that is not as popular as Toronto. It's not that the city is small, it's that it's not as popular as Toronto. If you go to a city like that, you could possibly still be able to live a proper life, a life where you're not paying rent and that's all you can afford, but a life where you can actually be able to afford food and rent and be able to pay for other things. So the first cheapest universities that I have seen in Canada is the Memorial University of Newfoundland. Now that Memorial University is $11,000 per year, and that is one of the cheapest universities in Canada, one of the cheapest. The next one is Conestoga College. This college is located in Ontario, but it is not in Toronto, it is in Kitchener, Ontario. So this college has a price range starting from approximately $12,500 per year, and this is just a college. Earlier I mentioned that the university in Newfoundland was $11,000, but in Ontario a college is costing you a little bit more than the university. That just shows you how expensive places like Ontario is. The next one is New Brunswick Community College. This is one of the least expensive universities in Canada, and it is located in the Atlantic region. A trend that you will notice is that all the schools in the Atlantic region are actually less expensive than schools in all the other provinces throughout Canada. That again is because in the Atlantic region, there isn't as high of a demand compared to places like Ontario, where many students are going there, so they have to find some way to filter out the people who are going there. Therefore, it is more expensive because the higher the demand, the more expensive everything is in the Atlantic region. I can't say there isn't a lot of people coming here, but I can say there isn't as many people comparing to Ontario that is coming to the Atlantic region. Therefore, the Atlantic region will always be less expensive. But you have to make some sacrifices. The sacrifices that you make to come to the Atlantic region, I would say it is not as entertaining, it is not as diverse, it lacks a lot of the outgoing part of things, I'm going to say. So entertainment is one of the biggest ones, where if you go to somewhere like Toronto, you're going to have many places that you can go to for fun and all those things. But in the Atlantic region, there isn't many places to go to, and everywhere is very small. The next one is a college in British Columbia. I try to mix the different provinces into the list with the cheapest one. So British Columbia has a college called College of New Caledonia. Now that college has a tuition of 14,300 and more per semester, and these are the amount for international students. Domestic students is a different amount. The next school is a college called Northern Light College. This college is located in British Columbia, and this college is approximately 10,900 for each program and more. So far, the two cheapest colleges that I've mentioned are the one that is $10,000, which is New Brunswick Community College, and then the second cheapest is Northern Light College, which is located in British Columbia, which is what I was saying as well. You can go to places like Ontario and British Columbia, but the problem with it is that it makes more sense to avoid the bigger cities. If you go to the cities that are not as populated as the bigger cities, you would have a better success rate. The next college is Nova Scotia Community College. I'm going to make a list of all these colleges down below so that it's easier. You can just copy and paste from the description box. So I'm just going to do that so that it's easy for you to go through the colleges, see their offerings, see if you like them. Something you should know about Canada in general is that Canada's education is known worldwide. It is recognized worldwide, and it is amazing education that you get here compared to many places. Like, Canadian experience is basically world-class experience. So therefore, in terms of choosing between the colleges, I would say once you're in a college that is in Canada, you are already on your way. And yes, there are colleges that are ranked as best university, best colleges, stuff like that. I personally really don't care about that. If you do, you can do your own research, but for me personally, I don't care about, oh, this university ranked first, this one ranked second. I do not care about that, because at the end of the day, any college that you go to, you still get a degree at the end of the day, and your degree is still worth a degree no matter where you went. And yes, there may be employers who are like, well, we want to take persons from an amazing university, or a university that is ranked #1, but I haven't seen that as something that people in Canada consider at all. So if that is something you are thinking about, I've never heard of anyone who have been filtering persons based on where they went to school. So basically, once you get a degree at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter where you got it. And overall, when you think about Canada in general, Canada offers world-class education. So any school in Canada you go to, you'll be fine. All right, the next one is a university. It ranges from 15,000 to 30,000, and it is University of Guelph. Their university ranges from 15 to 30,000 based on the program that you're studying. They are located in Ontario, and they are in the area of Guelph. Honestly, I don't know anything about this place. But I'm just here telling you about some of the cheapest universities in Canada, and you kind of just have to leap into the unknown to figure everything else out. And that's just life here, because what are you going to do? Well, yeah, you could possibly locate someone that lives in this area, but if you don't, honestly, leap in the unknown. But at the same time, do some research. Even if you don't know anybody, do some googling about this area, see what it's like and things like that. But outside of that, there isn't really anything that you can do about the location. Next university is Humber College. Humber College ranges between $12,000 to $22,000, and they are in Ontario. That is a very popular college that is in Ontario. And the next one is University of Prince Edward Island, which is the university that I attended, and that university is located in Prince Edward Island, which is located in the Atlantic region. So if you're interested, definitely come on over to the University of Prince Edward Island. The tuition is about $16,000 per year, and it goes up by increments of like $100 to $200 additional per year. So that's not too bad compared to generally compared to the amount that you have to spend in general. $100 is really nothing. But yeah, those are the universities. Those are the cheapest universities that I could find. I hope you found this helpful. I'll link all the details down below. If you missed any that I just said, they'll be down in the description, so don't worry about that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.